Revenge with Karen.
10 years I gave that place. 10 damn years. And what do I get in return? A microwave burrito that tastes like carpet cleaner and a snide comment from Wade, our sunburnt little CEO with the personality of a wet napkin. Gotta cut the fat this quarter, he chuckled, standing in the break room like he invented capitalism, watching the intern choke on her kale smoothie while pretending to care about quarterly burn rates. His eyes skimmed over me like I was a floor lamp. Not even a nod. 10 years of making sure nobody in this godforsaken company got sued for payroll screw-ups, and I get treated like the office plant, water it occasionally, and hope it doesn't die before the next inspection. You ever had a job where your name doesn't appear on the org chart, but if you quit, the whole operation would collapse in under a week? That's me. I was operations associate, administrative lead, internal strategy officer, whatever title they made up that month to avoid paying me more. But no raise in 3 years. No bonus last Christmas. And still, I showed up, cleaned their messes, and taught 3 separate HR managers how to file a damn W-2. Some days, I'd stare at the copier and fantasize about pulling a full office space. Other days, I'd laugh to myself while updating the employee classification logs because I knew what was coming. Not in a dramatic way, not like a whistleblower movie with tense music. No, more like a creaky pipe under pressure. You don't hear it until it bursts, but if you're the one watching the pressure gauge, you already know where it's going to blow. Anyway, while I was in that break room nuking my sad burrito and listening to Wade flex his MBA muscles to a group of yes men, something inside me just clicked. Kind of click you feel right before you stop smiling at dumb jokes and start counting receipts. And trust me, I had receipts. By the way, look, if you've been listening to this story for more than 30 seconds and haven't subscribed yet, maybe consider it. I mean, 93% of y'all listen and bounce without even hitting that button. It's free, it helps the team keep sharing these stories, and if you like watching train wrecks in slow motion, this one's about to derail hard. So tap that like button too if you've ever had a boss who confused incompetence with charisma. Back to Wade. He had this thing he did, where he'd brag about reorganizing talent pipelines, which is MBA speak for firing people and hiring cheaper ones. He once called it creative friction. I called it what it was, cutting corners with a blowtorch and duct tape. That week, I noticed he stopped copying me on payroll summaries. That wasn't an accident. That was Wade testing the waters. And I knew what was coming. 3 days later, a delivery guy dropped a small stack of envelopes at the front desk. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I was making my 4th trip to refill the printer tray with paper I'd bought myself because procurement wasn't in budget until Q3. I clocked the top envelope, plain white, altimeter core logo, no postage. That meant hand-delivered. It also meant internal. Inside, 1,099 misc forms. My stomach twisted. I didn't say anything. Not then. I'm not the blow-up in the office type. I'm the type who remembers where the bodies are buried. Because guess who's filed every intern classification report for the last 8 years? Guess who manually updated the spreadsheet Wade's cousin forgot to sanitize before sending to the state back in 2019? Guess who caught the contractor from Denver submitting invoices during company-paid holidays, which would have triggered a misclassification flag if anyone had been paying attention? Spoiler, it was me. And now Wade, this smug, lanyard-wearing ferret, was about to try and cut me loose without a severance package, without notice, just a quiet shift in designation like I wouldn't notice. Like I didn't understand the implications. Like I hadn't written the damn internal policy on it myself. 10 years in that chair. 10 years watching execs rotate through like bad Tinder dates, full of buzzwords and undercooked ideas. 10 years cleaning up messes, rewriting onboarding processes, and making sure no one noticed when we accidentally overpaid a vendor by $18K. And this was my thank you. A thin envelope, a tax dodge, and a laugh in the break room. Fine. I finished my burrito, tossed the wrapper in the trash, and walked back to my desk. Didn't say a word. Just opened a clean browser window, typed out a new email to the Department of Labor, and in the subject line I wrote, Altimeter Core Systems suspected worker misclassification, long-term pattern. I didn't hit send. Not yet. But I'd already started building the attachment list. The summons came like it always did, with a calendar ping and a vague subject line. Quick sync Wade knew better than to expect clarity. Wade didn't do details. He floated above them, like a hoverboard made of Red Bull and buzzwords. Still, I clicked accept and walked down the hallway, past the same posters we'd had up since 2014. Gritty stock photos of mountain climbers and taglines like push beyond possible. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd pushed beyond possible every damn quarter, while they pushed my title further into HR limbo. Wade's office smelled like overpriced cologne and ego. He sat behind his standing desk. He didn't actually stand. He just liked the idea of standing, grinning like he'd just invented the light bulb. He gestured for me to sit, but didn't wait for me to get comfortable before sliding a thin envelope across the desk. White, unsealed, no greeting. Congrats, he said, like he was offering me a spa day. You're officially a consultant now. I stared at it. Is this a 1099? Bingo, he beamed. Lean and mean, baby. We're restructuring and you've been upgraded. No more payroll deductions, no more HR shackles. You invoice us monthly now. Big win. There was this pause. A breath I didn't realize I'd been holding just sat there in my throat like swallowed gravel. I managed to say, I didn't agree to that. Wade waved it off like I was declining an appetizer. Come on, Meg. We're saving you from taxes. He actually chuckled. Well, technically we're saving us, but hey, you're smart. You'll figure it out. Just talk to your accountant. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated. Lazy, reckless, but calculated. I looked at the 1099 like it was a sheet of toilet paper masquerading as a parachute. My benefits gone. Job protections evaporated. Retirement match toast. And with it, their entire safety net, because I wasn't just any employee. I was the compliance pipeline. I was HR. I knew how this would look on audit forms. I knew what the state considered misclassification, and I sure as hell knew that you're a consultant now wasn't a legal contract. But Wade, he kept smiling like a man who'd just sold a bridge to himself. Don't worry, he added, tapping his keyboard like a toddler playing Mozart. The others are getting the same treatment. It's not personal, just a new structure. We'll all be happier this way. The others? I stood up, holding the envelope like it might bite. How many others? He shrugged. 20, 25, some of them were part-time anyway. HR will smooth it out. HR will smooth it out. I was HR, you human quesadilla. I didn't say that. I didn't say anything. I just nodded slowly and walked out, but on the way back to my desk, I made a detour past the receptionist's area. That's when I saw them. A stack of identical envelopes, fanned out like playing cards, each one a grenade with the pin pulled. A dozen names I recognized. People who'd been here longer than Wade. People who'd signed leases and bought braces for their kids based on W-2 income and the illusion of job security. I walked past, face blank, heart racing. Back at my desk, I didn't log into payroll. I didn't check email. I opened a private spreadsheet I kept backed up in a personal cloud folder called Altimeter IC Records. Inside, every change log from the last 3 years, every job title adjustment, every benefits exclusion clause, every red flag I'd quietly documented when Wade started his little leaner business model crusade. I wasn't just mad, I was clinical. I started typing, not angry typing, precision typing, dates, names, internal emails, wage summaries, annotated screenshots. One after another, I slotted them in like bullets into a revolver. See, Wade forgot something when he handed me that envelope. He forgot I built the system he was trying to game. I was the one who taught his cousin how to classify exempt vs. non-exempt labor. I was the one who flagged the intern debacle in 2018 that nearly got us flagged by the state board. I was the one who silently rewrote a contractor clause in our master agreement after his last cost saver tried to claim overtime. He thought I'd panic or quit or go quietly like the others. But there's a difference between compliance and complicity. I leaned back, breathing through my nose while the office buzzed around me like nothing had changed. Wade laughed somewhere in the distance. Someone poured coffee too loudly, but me, I just felt the air shift. Not dramatic, not explosive, just a click, like the sound a lock makes right before it opens. The thing about companies like Altimeter is they never expect the quiet ones to remember. They think just because you don't speak up in meetings or flash a PowerPoint every quarter that you're forgettable, replaceable, invisible, but I remembered everything. Because everything went through me. Every form, every signature, every last dotted line that nobody else ever bothered to read. I remember the spring of 2017, when we onboarded 6 interns from the local tech college. The handshake deal was unpaid, for credit, but Wade made them run full client reports, answer support tickets, and one poor kid was even asked to ghostwrite blog posts under Wade's name. I remember filing the initial paperwork. I remember flagging it in our internal Slack with a polite but very real warning that unpaid interns can't do revenue-generating work. Wade responded with a meme. A freaking meme. A picture of a clown holding money with the caption, "Corporate hacks be like, do the work, but don't get paid." And when Q3 payroll closed, 3 of the intern pay logs were just gone. I asked our finance lead at the time about it. She said Wade had handled it personally. That same lead was let go a month later in a restructuring. I remembered that. I remembered when we switched benefits providers in 2019, and Wade instructed me to delay sending out COBRA notices because nobody reads those anyway. I pushed back. He said he'd take responsibility. I quietly BCC'd myself on every conversation because I always knew, one day I might need a receipt. That day had finally arrived. After the 1,099 envelope stunt, I didn't march into Wade's office. I didn't send a heated reply all or slap down my badge. I took a breath, closed my work laptop, and opened my personal one. Then I plugged in the encrypted USB drive I'd been quietly maintaining for 7 years. I didn't take confidential info, I took records. Logs, time-stamped policy edits, screenshot folders of deleted emails from Slack's archive before Wade switched us to a cheaper plan that didn't store history. You'd be amazed how many execs treat Slack like it's not discoverable in court. I searched my inbox for streamlining, a word Wade loved almost as much as synergy. Sure enough, I found it. A thread from 2021. Wade emailing his inner circle. If we reclassify non-client-facing roles to Ikes this year, could shave 11% off total comp. Megan will handle the mechanics. Just call it optimization. They'll thank us at the investor call. He even had a smiley face. Like he was telling a joke, except this one came with federal penalties. He had no idea which roles could legally be classified as independent contractors. Spoiler, most of them couldn't. If you set someone's hours, give them a company email, supervise their performance, forbid them from working for competitors, they are not a contractor. That's not a gray area, that's law, and I knew it, because I'd taken the certification course. Twice. I spent the rest of that evening digging. Quietly, carefully. I pulled my own pay stubs, compared the W-2s to my new 1,099. Noticed that the hours logged hadn't changed, but the liability had, and I compiled a list of all employees who'd quietly disappeared over the last 2 years and ran a cross-check with the classification logs. 23 people, 23 possible violations, one company too stupid to see what it had just done. The next morning, I called my accountant, Terry. She's the kind of woman who has a fax machine in her living room and still mails holiday cards with IRS cartoons taped inside. I trusted her more than I trusted anyone in that building. Bring everything, she said, and bring snacks. We're going to be here a while, so I did. We spent 6 hours going through every document I'd collected. Terry's eyes narrowed when she saw the 1,099, then her face dropped when I showed her Wade's email. You know what this is, right? She said. Yeah, I nodded. It's intent. Good, she said, because intent gets people sued. We didn't rush. We documented. Terry gave me the name of a compliance lawyer she'd worked with in a misclassification case last year. Said the woman was sharp. Said the company ended up owing $3.2 million in back taxes, penalties, and restitution. But what got them? It wasn't the screw-up. It was the paper trail. I had a hell of a paper trail, and I hadn't even started sending it out yet. The subject line was simple. Worker misclassification pattern of violations, altimeter core systems. No all caps, no drama. Just the kind of title that lands like a scalpel, clean, precise, and right where it hurts. I didn't write a novel, just 4 sentences. Hello, I am a former employee at Altimeter Core Systems, recently reclassified as an independent contractor against my consent. I believe the company has knowingly misclassified multiple employees to avoid tax and benefits obligations. Please find attached evidence detailing the internal communication, payroll history, and affected personnel. Sincerely, Megan Caldwell. 4 lines and a warhead. The attachments took longer. I had to rename everything, annotate it cleanly. Wade's email went first. His smug joke about saving me from taxes was now exhibit, in a case he didn't even know existed. Then I dropped in a PDF version of my original job description, the one filed with the state during our last benefits audit, where I was clearly designated as a full-time employee with fixed hours and supervisory duties. Direct conflict with my new consultant status. I didn't stop there. I included 10 years of pay stubs, side-by-side comparisons showing consistent hours, company-issued resources, even company-branded health webinars I'd been required to attend. I threw in a list of 23 names, first name, last initial, their roles, and the dates they were either terminated, shifted to 1099 status, or simply disappeared during Wade's restructuring waves. The data told its own story. And the final document, internal Slack export I'd saved before Wade downgraded our plan. In it, a thread from his leadership circle, dated January 12th, read, "Let's roll out the new IC plan next week. Megan can clean up whatever compliance noise comes through. She knows the drill." I stared at that line for a while before attaching it. She knows the drill. He was right. I did. When it was all in the folder, 17 files, 1 spreadsheet, and 3 emails with embedded timestamps, compressed the zip and attached it to the message. I hovered over the send button. It wasn't rage I felt, not fear, just an eerie calm like the moment right before a tornado touches ground. You can hear the trees creak, feel the static in your teeth, and suddenly everything's too quiet. Then I clicked, send. I closed the browser, shut the laptop like a book I didn't need anymore. The house felt silent in a way I hadn't noticed in months. No Slack notifications, no buzz from the Teams app, no Outlook pings marking time like a dying heartbeat. I sat there for a full minute. Then I reached for my phone and called the lawyer Terry recommended. Her name was Gabrielle Lynn. A voice like steel wool wrapped in silk picked up on the third ring. "This is Lynn. Hi, my name's Megan Caldwell. I believe I might be a whistleblower." She didn't pause, didn't act surprised. "Okay," she said. "Tell me everything you haven't told the state yet." That's when I knew I'd called the right person. We talked for almost 90 minutes. I gave her the overview, the players involved, the internal patterns I'd documented. She asked pointed questions about classification audits, about vendor payments, about the email server policy. I answered each one with a clarity that surprised even me. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't looking for a payout. I just wanted a layer of armor, because retaliation was coming. Could feel it in my bones. Wade didn't like losing control, and I just detonated the one thing he'd built his optimization strategy on: silence. Gabrielle laid out the next steps. First, she'd document the call. Second, she'd file for preliminary whistleblower protection under both federal and state statutes. Third, she'd notify the agency in question that I was cooperating through counsel. It wasn't a lawsuit yet. It was a line drawn in fine red ink. And once it was drawn, it couldn't be erased. "Do you want to stay anonymous?" she asked. I thought about that, about letting it all unfold behind the curtain. But then I remembered Wade's voice, laughing, handing me that envelope like it was a gift instead of a grenade. "No," I said. "Put my name on it." There was a long pause on the other end. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Good," she replied, "'cause people like you usually win." I hung up, looked around my living room. Same rug, same coffee mug, same view of the Walgreens parking lot across the street. Nothing looked different, but something had shifted. I had just declared war, and I wasn't the one exposed. It was a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday where everything smells like stale coffee and bad decisions. Rain smeared the windows like the sky was trying to erase the whole building. I was sitting in my car, parked just far enough from Altimeter's front entrance to be invisible, but close enough to watch the rats spin their little wheels. I hadn't been back since they consulted me into oblivion, but old habits die hard. I like seeing the parking lot half full by 9:05 a.m. The same people running late, same overachievers speed walking with lukewarm Starbucks, pretending they weren't dying inside. I was sipping my own coffee when I got the text. It came. Oh, name, just that. But I knew who sent it. One of the assistants still working inside, a loyal survivor of Wade's reclassification purge. She wasn't the only one keeping me looped in. People forget. When you build a company's HR systems from scratch, you don't just control the spreadsheets. You control the relationships. And scared people remember who kept them safe. 10 minutes later, Wade's tan Ford Explorer pulled into his reserved space, splashing a pedestrian who dared walk too close. Class act as always. He strutted inside, oblivious, juggling his phone and what looked like an overnight FedEx envelope. I knew that envelope. It was the kind that didn't come with a discount code or welcome kit. It came with consequences. From what I was told later, Wade tore into it in the lobby, right there in front of reception. People could see his face change in real time, cocky confusion shifting into something pale and tight around the mouth. But then, in classic Wade fashion, he recovered fast, laughed like it was nothing, and muttered something about routine admin crap. He tossed it onto the office manager's desk like it was junk mail, walked off with that same fake swagger he'd worn for years. But behind him, the whispering started. Turns out the envelope was from the State Department of Labor, Office of Worker Classification and Wage Integrity. That's not a department that sends birthday cards. It was an official audit notice. The state had opened a misclassification investigation into altimeter core systems, naming Wade directly as the acting officer responsible for payroll oversight during the period in question. The time range? 5 years. 5. That's how long I'd been collecting receipts. Word spread fast inside the building. A few department heads were pulled into closed-door meetings. The finance lead, or guy, was seen stress-eating almonds in the break room and muttering about missing documentation gaps. IT got roped in too, asked to recover archived emails from people who hadn't worked there in years. They said the request was for record-keeping hygiene, which is corporate code for we're screwed and need a scapegoat. What they didn't know, every time someone typed, "Does anyone have a copy of X?" or "Where's that document Megan used to send?" added to the trail of panic. That's how agencies build cases. Not from confessions, from scrambling, and oh, they scrambled. I got another text later that week from my insider. This one made me laugh out loud. They asked Brenda to recreate your HR logs. She cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Brenda was sweet, but couldn't find a paperclip without directions. She was hired because her uncle played golf with Wade. Now she was being asked to manually recompile a decade's worth of audit-grade documentation, using forms she didn't know existed. I imagined her trying to figure out which classification code to assign to a hybrid support role. I imagined her opening the folder labeled Benefits 2019 and finding nothing but a gif of Wade doing finger guns at a company BBQ. Meanwhile, the employees, current and former, started reaching out, some of them cautiously, some of them furious. I heard from a guy named Julian who had moved to another company and just found out he'd been listed as an independent contractor without his knowledge during his final 3 months. He got a tax bill he couldn't explain. Another woman, Kendra, said her 401k contributions had mysteriously vanished during her last quarter. She thought it was a technical error. Nope, just Wade playing God with other people's futures. The beautiful part? I didn't have to do anything now. I'd already pressed the detonator. The countdown had begun. The auditors would do the rest. My lawyer called to confirm the audit had officially been assigned a case number. Gabrielle said the agency had elevated it from routine to high-risk profile, which meant they suspected deliberate fraud. She told me to lay low, not to poke the bear. I said, "Gabrielle, I'm not poking anything. I'm just watching it drown." Because that's what it felt like now. The ice was cracking under them, slowly, invisibly, and every denial, every stall tactic, every panicked side email they sent, it just made the cracks louder. Wade still hadn't called me, but he would. They always do. The board met on a Friday. Classic move. Late enough in the week that nobody would have time to schedule follow-ups, early enough that they could still spin something for the Monday all-hands. I wasn't in the room, obviously. Temps don't get invited to mahogany tables, but I didn't need to be. People talk. Assistants talk more, and the ones you treat like furniture. They never forget the ones who knew their birthdays and refilled the coffee filters when procurement was waiting on Q2 allocations. From what I was told, Wade walked in looking like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Guy who used to show up with designer watches and smug dad energy was suddenly just a thinning hairline in a wrinkled shirt, clutching a manila folder like it owed him money. He opened the meeting with the usual noise. "I appreciate everyone making time. Let's stay solutions-focused. This is more smoke than fire, blah, blah, blah." Then came the pitch. "The audit," he said, leaning into the conference line mic, "is largely clerical. He had some reporting misalignments during the platform transition. Legal's handling it." Platform transition was his new way of saying we got caught doing something illegal, and now we're pretending it's Microsoft's fault. One of the newer board members, a guy from Connecticut with a buzz cut and the patience of a guillotine, cut him off. "What about the contractor classifications?" I reviewed the notice. It cites systemic misclassification, not platform misalignment. Wade chuckled nervously. Look, these agencies, God love 'em, they use strong language to cover themselves. We're already compiling the necessary documents. It'll blow over. And who compiled the original documents? Another board member asked. What was her name, Megan? Didn't she run HR compliance? That's when Wade lied. Not flinching, not stammering, just smooth as a bottle of dollar store cologne. She was a temp. Let me say that again. A temp. Had logged over 22,000 emails in that company's internal system. I built the compliance workflows. I literally wrote the memo that explained how to classify exempt vs. non-exempt employees in 3 states. And now I was a temp. Like I'd shown up for 3 weeks to answer phones and vanish into the break room wallpaper. But that was fine. I didn't need them to remember me. The state already had. That afternoon, I got a LinkedIn message. No subject, no intro, just a smiley face emoji followed by one sentence. Your file helped a lot. The sender worked for the Tax Enforcement Division. His profile picture was a DMV-grade headshot, his work history spotless. The kind of guy who didn't send messages unless they meant something. I stared at it for a long time. The temptation to reply with a fire emoji and a gif of Wade's face was strong. But I just liked the message and closed the app. Then wonder. Meanwhile, inside the building, cracks kept forming. Brenda, poor Brenda, had emailed IT to recover deleted payroll records from 2019 and was told, bluntly, that the company had no off-site backups from that year because Wade canceled the subscription to cut cloud costs. When she forwarded that answer to legal, she CC'd the wrong Gabriella, the one in sales who'd just come back from maternity leave and replied all with wait. What audit? Email got screenshotted and passed around like candy. Panic was seeping in, not all at once, but in waves. Wade's poker face wasn't holding up under pressure. Even the die-hard loyalists started softening. The head of finance began asking off-the-record questions. The CTO, who'd always kept one eye on the exits, started casually updating his LinkedIn. The funny thing about corporate bluffs is that they only work if nobody calls them. The state was already holding a full house, and Wade was bluffing with a sticky note and a dream. That weekend, I went to visit my dad. He lives out in rural Ohio, grows tomatoes like it's a full-time job, and thinks the IRS is staffed by aliens. He asked me how work was going. I told him I was doing some consulting now. For who? He asked. I smiled. The people who audit companies like my last one. He chuckled, not fully understanding but enjoying the sound of victory. Wade still hadn't called me, but now his board had my name in their notes, and I had their attention. The call came during breakfast, 2 rings, then straight to voicemail. Wade. His name still showed up in my phone, but it looked different now. Before, it used to trigger anxiety, like a fire alarm going off in your stomach. Now, it felt like a punchline, like a mosquito trying to get back into a house that had already been fumigated. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen to the message. Let him squirm. About an hour later, Gabrielle, my lawyer, called. Her voice was brisk, but you could hear the satisfaction behind every word. They've escalated, she said. State labor is coordinating with the tax board now. Dual investigation. They've officially subpoenaed 5 years of payroll logs, contractor payment records, internal communications regarding classification changes. My silence said everything. And yes, she added, the email you forwarded, Wade's little tax joke, is in the record now. Highlighted. Good, I said, pouring another cup of coffee. He liked that joke. Might as well let the state laugh, too. Gabrielle chuckled. They're not laughing, Megan. They're building. I knew that tone. It meant blood was in the water and the sharks had sharpened their teeth. Weren't circling out of curiosity anymore. They were moving in to feed. In the background, I could hear papers rustling. She was reading something. One more thing, she said. You got noticed. By who? Office of Tax Enforcement. The lead investigator saw your submission. He forwarded it to another department. You're going to get a call today. That call came 3 hours later. The voice on the line was calm, bureaucratic, polite to a fault. Introduced herself as Director Lena Morris, head of internal compliance hiring for the Ohio Department of Revenue. She didn't waste time. I reviewed the documentation you submitted. The quality of the audit trail, the internal classification records, it was exceptionally clear. I let the silence hang. It wasn't pride I felt, not exactly. It was something deeper, like exhaling after holding your breath underwater too long. We're expanding our enforcement division, she continued. Would you be interested in coming in as a compliance analyst? You'd be working cases like the one you helped uncover. My mouth went dry. I'd imagined revenge 1,000 ways. Lawsuits, headlines, a televised perp walk with Wade sweating through his pastel polo shirt. But this was different. This wasn't just getting even. This was taking all that buried, thankless knowledge and putting it somewhere useful, somewhere that didn't dismiss it as admin crap or optional HR junk. I said yes. She sent over the offer letter within the hour, government salary, decent benefits, no corporate jargon, no shareholder nonsense. Just a badge, a desk, and the green light to do what I'd already been doing in secret, noticing everything. By 3 p.m., I'd signed. By 3:05, Wade called again. This time, he left a message. "Hey Megan, just checking in. I think there's been some confusion. We'd love to clarify a few things on our end. It's all very fixable. Just give me a call, yeah? Appreciate it. Fixable." He actually said fixable. You can't fix 5 years of misclassification. You can't fix the fact that you left digital fingerprints on every fraudulent document you ever touched. You can't fix turning loyal employees into tax liabilities just to shave a few points off your burn rate. But sure, Wade, go ahead and fix it. I didn't reply. Gabrielle sent a formal cease and desist on contact the next morning. Wade wouldn't be calling again. Later that week, one of my former coworkers, Lisa from accounting, sent me a DM on Instagram. Just a screenshot of the company's internal announcement. Due to ongoing administrative matters, Wade Halbrook will be stepping back from daily operations effective immediately. No signature, no comment, just silence. In corporate terms, that was a scream. I sat back in my chair, stared at the job offer now pinned to my fridge, and finally let myself feel it. The shift, the reset. The quiet, nuclear thrill of watching a man try to bluff a system I helped build, then get audited into oblivion by it. And I was just getting started. The boardroom smelled like leather and fear. The quarterly strategy session was supposed to be a formality, PowerPoints, vague forecasts, be a little light brown nosing before they all slinked off to their overpriced sedans. But this time, there was no coffee, no pastries, no grinning interns trying to network through nervous laughter. Just a stack of manila folders at each seat, a grim-looking outside counsel standing by the projection screen, and one thick packet labeled in red. State of Ohio findings and determination of worker classification violations. Wade walked in 15 minutes late and still peeling from a vacation he probably shouldn't have taken. He tried to make a joke. "Sorry, folks, traffic's a beast." Nobody laughed. He glanced around, clearly picking up on the tension, but not smart enough to stay quiet. He gave a little smirk and said, "Okay, let's get this admin crap out of the way." And then legal began to read. The outside counsel, a silver-haired woman with eyes like ice cubes, didn't preamble. She just opened the folder and started speaking. Paragraph after paragraph, footnote after footnote. The room got colder with every sentence. View of submitted classification records indicates a sustained and knowing deviation from state and federal employment standards. Evidence includes internal communications indicating awareness of misclassification strategy. Impacted individuals include a mix of full-time employees improperly designated as independent contractors for cost-saving measures. And then came the line. The line that shattered the room like a gunshot in a cathedral. To knowing misclassification over a sustained period, full retroactive penalties apply under Section 9C. Officers may be held personally liable. There was a moment, so brief it might have gone unnoticed if you weren't watching closely, when Wade flinched. His eyelid twitched. His knuckles turned white against the table's edge. The kind of reaction a man has when he realizes the floor beneath him isn't wood, it's glass. And it's already cracking. Someone finally broke the silence. A board member from Denver. Bald, always grumpy. "Wait, personally liable." The lawyer didn't look up from the page. "That's correct. Officers who approved or signed off on the reclassification plan are eligible for individual penalties under Labor Code violations." Wade cleared his throat. This is still preliminary, right?" "I mean, we can negotiate, no," said another board member. "You said this was clerical. Said legal had it contained." Well, I didn't have full context at the time." Wade stammered, sweat blooming like a guilty fog beneath his collar. This was Megan's area. She managed those systems. I assumed, the lawyer looked up for the first time. Megan Caldwell filed a complete documentation set with time-stamped logs, policy memos, and digital trails tracing every change. She refused to sign off on reclassification protocols. Email correspondence was cited in 3 different state reports as a whistleblower. That word, whistleblower, it hung in the air like smoke. The man from Denver leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. You told us she was a temp. She handled onboarding, another board member added, voice low, and payroll and benefits, and the last audit and the intern issue and Jesus, Wade, someone muttered. The lawyer flipped to the final page. In summary, she said, projected penalty assessment includes back pay, benefits restitution, tax repayment, fines, and interest. The current total liability stands at $7.8 million. Someone gasped. Wait, what? That can't be right, Wade said, but his voice cracked halfway through. 7 point, that's the current estimate, she corrected. With additional discovery, it may increase. And per Section 9C, any misrepresentation of internal classification protocols, especially knowingly submitted documentation, could trigger fraud enhancements. Wade tried to speak again, but the general counsel cut in. I think you should step out. What? Wade, please. He looked around, searching for a friendly face. There weren't any. The woman from legal slid her folder shut. The man from Denver just stared at him. Another board member checked his phone like Wade wasn't even there. And then the general counsel muttered it. Quiet, and for no one and everyone. You just bankrupted us. Wade stood, ghost white and trembling, and left the room without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. No one followed, no one moved, no one asked why, because they all knew. They'd built their empire on paperclips and arrogance, on short-term bonuses and corner-cutting dressed up as strategy. And now the paper trail was a fuse, burning backwards, straight to Wade's desk. Out in the hallway, his footsteps faded, and somewhere in a cubicle not far from the boardroom, Brenda probably spilled her coffee. Again. But in that moment, the empire cracked. And the reckoning wasn't coming. It had already arrived. The sky was crystal blue, one of those rare Ohio afternoons where the sun's warm but not punishing and the air doesn't smell like asphalt stew. I took the long way to lunch. Not for nostalgia, just for punctuation. One final pass, one last glance, for I moved on to something that didn't require duct tape optimism and hallway invisibility. Altimeter's office loomed ahead like a mausoleum built from glass and denial. Same oversized logo etched on the windows, same motivational posters inside with words like integrity and resilience. Hilarious, considering the building had been running on manipulation and caffeine for over a decade. But today, something was missing. Wade's car. The tan Ford Explorer, always crooked in the spot marked executive reserved, always parked like it had somewhere better to be. Gone. I didn't stop walking. Just kept moving past the revolving door where I'd once stood holding armfuls of compliance binders, while Wade gave a tour to investors and introduced me as our HR gal, or whatever her title is. Whatever her title is. I laughed to myself just once. A dry, satisfied exhale. My phone buzzed. An email. The board's interim chair. Subject, Altimeter restructuring support opportunity. The body was short, cautious, dressed up in the kind of corporate guilt that wears a tie to a funeral. Megan, we understand you're now working with the Department of Revenue. Given your historical knowledge and deep understanding of Altimeter systems, we're hoping you might consider a short-term consulting engagement to assist during restructuring. Happy to discuss terms if you're open. Best. Daniel K., interim board chair, would I consider helping the same leadership circle that let Wade turn a decade of loyalty into a punchline? Maybe, but not today. I sipped my coffee, dark roast, no cream, still hot, and smiled at the screen. Not a gloating smile, not bitter. Just the kind of smile you wear when everything lines up, when the scales tip and stay there. I tapped the 3 dots in the top right corner of the screen. Archive. There was no need to reply. They knew what that silence meant now. Across the street, a delivery guy wheeled a dolly of file boxes into the lobby. Another audit probably, another set of names. Another trail of damage control disguised as business continuity. It wasn't my job to fix it anymore. It wasn't my mess. The mess had already served its purpose. Later that day, I walked into my new office, sterile, quiet, functional. Not glamorous, not impressive, but real. Badge hung from my neck now. Government issued. My name on it spelled right. My title listed clearly, Senior Compliance Analyst. I walked past a wall where names of ongoing cases were listed. Some I didn't recognize, some I did. And one? Etched onto a whiteboard under active review, bold and underlined. Altimeter Core Systems case, #231904WC. I stood for a moment, sipping the last of my coffee. I wasn't there for revenge. I wasn't there to gloat. I was there because I'd read the fine print and because nobody else had. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.